to all of you. First of all, a very warm welcome to the eminent speaker, and welcome to all the faculty members, research scholars, students, and all the other participants who have joined for the 5th session of our international workshop on Contemporary Horizons of Comparative Literature, organized by the Department of English and Modern European Languages, University of Allahabad. So over the past few days, this workshop has opened rich and stimulating conversations on the changing scope of comparative literature, from crisis and methodology to poetry, discourse, technology, and interdisciplinary inquiry. Today, we gather for a theme that is both intellectually urgent and ethically significant, titled Bodies, Borders, Belonging: Postcolonial Ecofeminisms in Comparative Literature. And we are very honored to have our resource person, Dr. Ankita Sundriyal, who is Assistant Professor of English at Vellore Institute of Technology, Vellore, Tamil Nadu. She was former Erasmus Mundus Fellow, and she has worked on the intersections of gender, ecology, and cultural representations. So we have a very suitable resource person to deliver a lecture to us, a session to us on this particular topic. So her current research on gender and subsistence labor in the Himalayan region contributes meaningfully to wider debates in indigenous feminisms and ecological thought in India. And we are certain that her insights today will enrich our understanding of how comparative frameworks can illuminate the interconnected realities of environment, gender, and postcoloniality. I also extend my gratitude to the Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Sangeeta Srivastava, for her patronage and encouragement to make such activities possible. And I am very thankful to the respected head of our department, Professor Indrani Mukherjee, for her constant support and guidance in making such events possible. Thank you very much, ma'am. Now I invite the head of the department, Professor Indrani Mukherjee, to formally welcome the resource person.
Thank you, Dr. Aloysius. Good evening, everyone. It is a pleasure for me to warmly welcome Dr. Ankita Sundriyal to today's session on Bodies, Borders, Belonging: Post-Colonial Ecofeminisms in Contemporary Comparative Literature. This compelling theme invites us to reflect on the intricate intersections of gender, ecology, and post-colonial identities, areas that are increasingly vital in our understanding of contemporary literary and cultural discourses. Dr. Sundriyal's work thoughtfully engages with how bodies and landscapes are shaped by histories of power, displacement, and resistance. It seeks to highlight the intersection of post-colonialism and ecofeminism, examining how marginalized communities, particularly women, negotiate identity, fight environmental injustice, and define belonging in post-colonial contexts. By bringing together post-colonial thought and ecofeminist perspectives, her topic would help us reimagine belonging beyond rigid borders, encouraging a more inclusive and ethically grounded approach to comparative literature. We are truly honored to have her with us today. Her insights promise to deepen our engagement with these critical issues and open up new avenues for dialogue and reflection. I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Aloysius for coordinating this online workshop in a seamless way. And on behalf of the Department of English and Modern European Languages, University of Allahabad, I once again extend a very warm welcome to you, Dr. Sundriyal. We look forward to your address and the enriching perspectives you will share with us. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So now I invite Mukta to introduce us to Professor Dr. Sundriyal formally. Mukta?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Department of English and Modern European Languages, University of Allahabad, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Sangita Srivastava, our respected Head of Department, Professor Indrani Mukherjee, and our Coordinator, Dr. Aloysius Sebastian, for making this enriching workshop possible. We are especially grateful to have us with today Dr. Ankita Sundriyal. Dr. Sundriyal is an assistant professor of English at Vellore Institute of Technology, a leading research institution in India. Her academic journey includes an Erasmus Mundus Fellowship in Women's and Gender Studies from the University of Bologna, along with a PhD in English and Gender Studies. Her work lies at the intersection of gender, ecology, and culture, with a particular focus on South Asia and Himalayan region. Her research critically engages with the gender dimensions of ecological conservation, subsistence labor, and indigenous ecofeminist thought, making her work especially relevant to contemporary debates in comparative literature. Today, she will be speaking on bodies, borders, belonging, postcolonial ecofeminisms in comparative literature. We are truly honored to have you here with us, ma'am. And now I would like to warmly welcome you and invite you to begin your session. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mukta. First of all, let me begin by thanking Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor Sangeeta Srivastava and the head of the Department of English and Modern European Languages, Professor Indrani Mukherjee, and of course, dear friend and coordinator of the workshop. Wonderful workshop. I must say I've attended every session, Dr. Aloysius Sebastian. And it's strange because Allahabad is my birthplace, but I've never been to Allahabad University. I hope to come there someday in person. So without further delay, let me begin my presentation. Okay. I hope the screen is visible.
The screen is visible.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, your presentation is coming right now. Now it's visible.
Now it's visible. Okay, I think it is taking some time because of the network. Yeah, now it is visible to me as well. Okay. So the final session, I begin with talking about borders, bodies, and belonging. And I have accumulated, I have searched for texts endlessly, and then I came forward with these core texts for our discussion, which is Buchi Emecheta's Second Class Citizen, Toni Morrison's Beloved, Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni's Arranged Marriage and Other Stories, and John Rhys's White Sargasso Seal. So all these texts, keeping in mind the different approaches they take to the bodies of women and the different approaches they take to violence in general towards women, is why I ended up with these four texts. And I cannot fully call them post-colonial ecofeminists, but mostly the approaches taken by these texts and certain excerpts I thought would be the best to help us reach the idea, the central idea of post-colonial ecofeminism. So now, I would, of course, ask all of you to interact and be active in this workshop. And for that, if you wish, you can switch on your cameras and participate during the workshop. If you do not want that, you can use your chat and just type words to whatever comes to your mind regarding the slide on screen or the images on screen. So in this first slide, you can see that towards the left, you have an image of perhaps slaves, and it is from a different century. And towards the right, you have a woman sitting in an airport. Now, what do you think, also keeping the captions in mind, what do you think do these images represent? Or what do you think are the commonalities or points of separation in these two images? I look forward to hearing from you. And if you're comfortable, you can just type in the chat. That is also fine. Anything, whatever comes to your mind when you look at these images, the one on the left, the one on the right, what appears to be in common and what appears to be different?
There are responses in the chat
Burden
box.
of responsibility, great. She is taken as a commodity, of course. To switch her situation, all right. Lack of self-actualization. Women's labor and work are viewed as public property. Then this can be classified towards the left. Both are working unwillingly. Why do you say so, Harshita? What makes you think that both are working unwillingly? Okay, from the answers that we have received, it is clear that okay, I received another answer, which is social pressure. Okay, both are working for others. That's a good option. Yes, because they don't have a choice to switch their situations. All right, so let us see. Okay, neoliberal economy. Yes, these are different systems of economy, but yes, they are quite literally hunted by different systems of economy. Now, on the left, you have these two images, by the way, are centuries apart. On the left, you have women doing labor, and on the right, you have a woman who's at the center of the screen sitting in an airport. Now, what these two represent, and I think you must have an idea that on the right, it is a woman sitting at an airport, probably immigration control with her child, and she looks a little helpless. And on the left, you have slaves who are at the mercy of plantation owners, and both of their bodies are in control, albeit by different systems. On one hand, you have the plantation owners, and on the other hand, you have a neoliberal economy, as one person said, and it is both actually built upon the exploitation of women's bodies or the control of their sexuality and their bodies. Then we come to the next slide, which is postcolonial ecofeminism. How do we understand post-colonial ecofeminism? When we compare the logic of land domination as well as women domination, the same colonial logic operates on them. When you look at land, it is to be exploited, it is to be plundered, it is full of resources that can be extracted. But when we come to women, it works the same way. They can be controlled, their bodies can be controlled, their sexuality can be controlled. And post-colonial ecofeminism as a school of thought argues that this exploitation, this domination works along the same axis, that is, works along the same colonial logic, that is the logic of exploitation, the logic of use and abuse, the logic of control. If we compare land and women's bodies, both of them operate as territories to be conquered, to be owned, to be used, to be extracted from, and to enforce control or to manipulate however they see fit. Now, the questions that we bring to this literature are, how are women's bodies linked to land, home, or memory? And what systems operate upon them? What systems in common control both of these aspects? And what resistances emerge from these connections? Now, let us go forward with what systems do you think are controlling both of them? Of course, there are a few words mentioned in the text as well, in the slide as well. But what do you think operates in common in exploiting, in abusing, in dominating both land and women's bodies? Because that is very central to post-colonial ecofeminism. Any words that you think might fit the situation? Which systems do you think are operating upon both land and women's bodies? Yes, I will repeat the question. The question is, how are women's bodies being operated upon, or which systems are common to operation upon land and women's bodies? Which systems do you think work upon both of them? Both became the object for society, yes. One who has the power, the divide of power, okay. Power structures, dominance. Owner has absolute right, yes. And who is the owner? Who is the owner of land as well as women's bodies? Yes, biopolitics is certainly in the equation. Capitalist, yes, capitalist structure society. Man, patriarchy, yes. Along with patriarchy, what else do you think works? Capitalist patriarchy, wonderful. Colonialism, yes. So we have received the three keywords: colonialism, capitalism, and patriarchy. And this could also be called triple subjugation. But for now, we are only dealing with colonialism and patriarchy because the basis of our presentation is post-colonial ecofeminism. Okay, then we go to the next slide, which is the four texts that we are going to discuss today. As I've already mentioned them, let me go straight to what all these four texts represent and what do they have in common. Now, Buchi Emecheta it moves from Africa to Britain, to London, and it deals with marriage, migration, and writing. Then we have Beloved, which is a journey of Seth from slavery to freedom, and it deals with ecology, trauma, and community. A sense of community is very important to especially Black British literature and Black literature in general. Then we have Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni's Arranged Marriage and Other Stories, which is an anthology of several stories. There, each story is a woman moving from India to America after marriage. So either she is already living in the USA or she is moving from India to America after marriage, which is as a dependent migrant. And of course, there are green cards, there are several social expectations from the colonial society as well as the society back home. And of course, there are a lot of silences. Then we have the fourth text, that is By Sargasso Sea by Rhys. And a lot of you must be familiar with it being the retelling of Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre. And she focuses on one character in particular. And it could also be called in today's terminology, a spin-off. So there, now Bertha, but she used to be somebody else back home. She moves from Dominica to England, and you have a lot of things happening there. We will discuss when we go to the excerpts, of course. Now, let me go to the three fundamental lenses that we are going to approach when it comes to these four texts. So we have three lenses, we have four texts, and we are trying to build an analysis through all of these. Now, I want you to read every excerpt on your own, and please try to be active and please try to answer to the questions that are at the bottom of the screen. That will make our analysis even richer. We come to our first text, that is Buchi Emecheta, second-class citizen, Nigeria to England. Now, Edda has married Francis. She has moved to London. She is the family's breadwinner, ironically, and she has just written her first novel, her brainchild. Now, I want you to read this excerpt and try to answer the questions that are below or to formulate a discussion after reading this. We'll wait for a few seconds while you read the excerpt. Okay. Now let us examine the excerpt. What do you think Ada is referring to when she says brainchild? And why a brainchild in particular? What is the word brainchild? And why is she using that word in particular? All her feelings, all the experience that books contains. Yes. Very good. It is her creation. Yes, of course. Yes, her original thought. Now, if you're familiar with the text, Or if you're not, let me tell you that Ada has already born a lot of biological children, and they are shared between her and Francis. But this, her brainchild, her book, is her own original creation that she can claim as her territory. But when Francis comes in, he intercepts. And what does he do exactly? And why is that action significant? What is Francis burning exactly? There is a sentence that says, then he threw it into the fire. The thing is burning. Yes. Her agency is burned. Very interesting. Yes. Yes. So we are all moving past the literal understanding that he's burning the book. But beyond burning the book, he's actually burning her creativity, her potential, freedom, inspiration. Yes. Great answers. Yes. He's burning her dreams, her ideas. Very good. He's burning her intellectual property, like somebody said. Her territory, that is her book, is being claimed by Francis because by the act of marriage, Francis believes that he owns every thought. He owns even the mind of Ada. Yes, you are correct. And whose territory is this? I think we already know that this territory belongs to Ada, but Francis is trying to claim it as his own. Okay, then we quickly move to Toni Morrison's Beloved. Now, Toni Morrison's protagonist said she used to be a slave, and she goes to Baby Suggs, who is a spiritual leader who holds gatherings in the clearing in the woods. She there talks about self-love. Again, I want you to go through this excerpt, and then we will answer the questions below. Okay, so let us go to the central question. What is the purpose of Baby Suggs creating a clearing there? Why does the character Baby Suggs create a clearing there, where Seth visits and talks of self-love? What is the significance of this clearing, which is designed by Baby Suggs to talk about self-love? Community to preach self-love, yes. Yes. Boundary, interesting. Okay, so let's look at these two answers. She is using community to preach self-love to enslaved women of color. And this is precisely why this clearing is extremely important, as elsewhere, enslaved women of colors do not have a clearing to process their thoughts, to talk about self-love, to love themselves, to love their flesh. Yes, to have a space of their own, to have a room of their own, and to reclaim their identity, very rightly said. Yes. And to reclaim their body also, yes, especially given the history of slavery and the way they are sort of divorced from their bodies. They are distanced from their bodies to the point where they don't even realize the pain that they were under. Okay, so then what happens to the clearing after the trauma? There's a particular line, but after school teacher came, and school teacher is a character who tries to measure Seth's body, just like an animal, just like you would do a medical object. After that, Baby Suggs stopped preaching. What do you think would happen to such a space if the owner, the designer, the creator of such a space, or if somebody who visits this space undergoes some form of trauma? Yes, it will collapse. Exactly. It collapses because it is no longer able to heal the people who are the members of that community. Now, how is the body territory here? Yes, due to oppression. But in the clearing, it is performing the opposite function. Here, the body is being reclaimed as their own territory, the women of color's territory. Yes, they are able to reclaim the possession of their bodies. Yes, very good. Now we go on to the third excerpt from Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni's Arranged Marriage. And it is a young Indian American woman who's reflecting on her marriage, which is arranged, which is migration driven, and she's trying to face the weight of family expectation. Let us go through the excerpt and then we'll try to answer one or two questions about it. Okay, so now we are reading about a woman who has been married and sent off to a far off land, to the US. Now, who owns her body according to this passage alone? Who do you think is the owner of her body? Or what did she know her body to be owned as? Yes, the exceptions, expectations, the society. Everybody except her own self. Very interesting. Yes, yes, precisely. There is a hint of frustration that she is owned by everybody other than her. Her own people. Yes, very good. That's an interesting observation, especially highlighting the word own. Yes, so basically her body has become a portfolio of ownership. It is owned by everybody except her. It is owned by her parents, the society, it is owned by now her husband. It is also owned by migration authorities because she is not just a migrant, she's a wife of a migrant, she's a dependent on a migrant. Now, there is an interesting concept of bats as well, which comes back later in the story. But what do these bats represent? And that is closely linked to understanding her body as a kind of territory. Yes, repressed freedom, very good. And yes. So why in plural? Why do we have bats in plural? Why not a single bat? Yes. So my question is, why not a single bat? Why so many bats? Every dream, yes, multiple dreams, multiple imagined selves that come to her late at night. Yes. Perfect. So I think we understand the concept of territory and the idea of bats, particularly in this passage. Then we go on to the next text, which is Jean Rhys's White Sargasso Sea. And now we can read the excerpt and answer the questions below. Yes, that is interesting, Mahima. I'm sorry, I'm rushing you because we have a lot of excerpts and we have to analyze all of them and bring them together. Okay, I hope we have somewhat gotten an idea of this excerpt. Now, look at the flowers. And some of the excerpt is missing because I couldn't fit it there. But the frangipani that is laying on the bed, she makes two wreaths of it, two wreaths, and then she crowns herself with one. And her husband says, well, you almost look like a king. You don't look like a queen. And she is hurt, and then she lets the flowers fall, and she steps on them. So what do you think crushes the flowers? Is it just Antoinette crushing the flowers, or is it something else? Yes. Diksha, we need to dig deeper, a little deeper. What else crushes the flowers? We know that Antoinette physically steps on the flowers and crushes them. But what leads to this action of crushing of the flowers? The violence of patriarchy, yes. But why? What is so violent about it? Yes. Chum, yes, you're almost there. They are trying to crush the woman's dignity, yes, along with the flower, crushing her hopes and self. Well, we don't know if she is selfless. Undue credit, okay. Let us just focus on the excerpt alone. Hidden anger, yes, there is a lot of hidden anger. And what leads to that anger? Is it neglect? Is it not paying attention to his wife, despite having married her? Yes, very good. Yes, post-marriage, yes, very good. Patriarchal norms, okay. Sort of controlling her, sort of not paying attention to her beauty, especially when she wears those wreaths and he does not, he implies that she is not beautiful as a queen, not getting validation, very good. And Antoinette compares herself to what? In the second part of the excerpt, you can see that Antoinette compares herself to something. Why? Yes, wild bushes, the wild, the wilderness, the wild garden. And again, she draws a comparison between her body and the garden. Why? Yes, something once cultivated, sure. Once paid attention to, but this garden is overgrown. And of course, here we must think of the connotation of wildness, gardens, of something that is not in the West, but somewhere else. It is not in the West. And later in the novel, you will see that this wildness is taken to the West and tamed. Okay, then we come to the next slide. Now we must assimilate our experience of reading these three excerpts, and we see how the body has been approached as territory in these four texts. We see the creative territory that is burned by the husband, by patriarchy, by marriage. Then we see the sacred territory which is being claimed from trauma, of being treated as an animal, of being treated as an object. Then in Divakaruni, we see the family, the society operating upon the woman, and then trying to adjust her until she no longer occupies space or identity. And then in Rhys, we see the natural territory being claimed, the wildness which is being claimed and which will later be taken to England to be tamed. Then we come to our next part of the workshop. We come to Texte Buchi Emecheta again, and let us see this excerpt and see how we can analyze this part of the novel. After Ada leaves Francis with the children, he finds a new flat. This confrontation marks a turning point in her survival. Please pay special attention to the highlighted part, the part in yellow. Okay, now we go to the questions. Now, look at the part where she says, he paid my bride price, I am his property. So why do you think she says, she automatically assumes that she or her body is the property of Francis? Yes. Exactly. Ownership. Very good. And of course, here we can go to Luce Irigary's concept of ownership, of passing the woman from the father to the husband. She is conditioned. Very good. That's an interesting observation because she automatically answers. She does not think about it. She automatically responds, he paid my bride price and I am his property. So what breaks inside of her? As she says these words, something breaks inside of her. Yes. So what breaks inside of her exactly? But she knew something in her had broken, but also something had been set free. Her dignity and choices? Yes. But does she also reclaim that individuality when she says that something has been set free? Despite saying that, she realizes that this is wrong. Yes, acceptance. Yes, identity crisis. She questions her identity as a dependent, and how something had been broken, perhaps her belief in the system of marriage, that the husband is supposed to protect her after bringing her to his home, after paying the bride price. Yes, that also breaks. That is also correct. And also something had been set free. Perhaps now she is, yes, her belief in the marriage, institution of marriage is broken. Very good. Yes. Correct. She tries to analyze this institution, and when she starts to see this as an institution, that is when she sets herself free, because she realizes that this is nothing more than a transaction. Okay, then we quickly go to the next slide. Again, back to Toni Morrison, where Seth remembers her escape, but also what came before. This excerpt talks about the brutal reduction of a person to property and scientific data. Okay, so why does she say that she is, or her body is treated as data? Or why does she feel like an animal? There's also a part in the novel where school teacher says that you have 2 feet, not 4. Interesting. So why did he expect her to have 4 feet instead of 2? What is he comparing her to? Yes. How does Seth see her body treated as data? Or how does she compare herself as animal? Yes, animalistic nature of which man here? Yes, very good. Great. So the school teacher automatically assumes that she is an uncivilized animal to be studied. Yes, there is an absence of warmth. The procedure is very clinical. He's measuring her, and there is a scene where her milk is taken, stolen from her. And again, like I said, she is claimed to have 2 feet instead of 4 legs or feet, which is strange, which is a strange observation to make to a person. And then we go to the second part of the passage, which is when she got to the clearing to Baby Suggs bathed her feet, bathed her back, and bathed her between her legs. Why? What is the act of bathing here? And here we are going into ecofeminist territory. Yes, reclaiming herself. The act of nurturing, allowing her to reclaim herself. The act of bathing is sacred. And this is typical ecofeminist territory where you are using the act of nurturing to reclaim your body as territory. Okay, then we quickly go to the next excerpt, again back to arranged marriage. A woman reflects on years of marriage and silence. And we are back to the bats as well. So pay special attention to the use of bats in this excerpt compared to the early excerpt. Yes, psychological violence. Yes, we will come to it. Okay, so I think you have read the passage. Yes, as Anila rightly answered, it is psychological violence combined with emotional violence. And how is it different from Emecheta? The slide before this, how is it different? How is it different from the previous experience? Yes, this is attacking her mental peace. Yes, sure. And that was more physical. That was where Seth was treated physically like an animal. And what does smaller mean here? Why the word smaller? He made her smaller year by year until she could almost fit inside the space he allowed her. Yes. Hidden pain, limited space, yes. And keep in mind that this is the migrants' family, so they probably have less space allotted to them anyway. And then the woman is again restricted to the domestic sphere and a small space within her. And not just literally, this is also the crisis of her identity. Her identity is reducing day by day, or is being restricted to a corner day by day. Yes, consistently feeling inferior, no room of her own, very good. Confidence is crashing, of course, low self-esteem. And then what happens to the bats? How are the bats transformed? Yes, very good. So now what do the bats become? Now they are not her lost selves. Now, what are they now? Yes, very good. She has accepted them as her companions. Now they are no longer her lost selves. Now those dreams, those lost ideas, yes, they give her comfort and they give her company. Great. Then we go to our fourth text again for our second lens. White Sargasso Sea, Antoinette has now moved from Dominica to England, and she has been renamed Bertha. If you have read Jane Eyre, you must be familiar with the character Bertha. And now she is imprisoned in the attic of Thornfield Hall. That is the home of Rochester. Now, what is Antoinette dreaming about? Especially after having moved to England. What is she dreaming about exactly? Remember, we talked about this in the first lens. What is she talking about? She compared herself to that concept in the previous lens. Happiness and prosperity went, yes. But what is happening? Yes. But what is her dream exactly? Better life. When was that better life? Yes. See, observe, it is written there. I had my dream. I walked through the forest and came to the garden at Kulib. But the garden was dead. It means that we are going back to her homeland, her garden that she used to visit and she used to take pleasure in. Yes, thinking about the past. And now the garden is dead. Why is the garden dead? Yes, childhood, very good. And very specific memory of childhood about the garden. Because in the previous lens, if you remember, she compared herself to a garden that is overgrown and nobody is tending to that garden. Yes, I think you could take it because she is married and she has now moved away from her homeland. So she has moved to England where everything is perfect. And if you can recall the neoclassical idea of everything being perfectly pruned and perfectly bordered, everything within control, as opposed to how Antoinette used to live back home. Yes, very good. Now, the candle. Now, Antoinette calls herself as fire. Why so? I must see the house destroyed. How come? And notice that she does not call it home. Yes. She does not call it home. She calls it, yes, she is full of rage. And this is a different kind of resistance as opposed to the previous slides. In Emecheta, we saw her analyzing her pain. In Beloved, we saw her, yes, very good. Yes. This is more resistant. This is more violent. Passive resistance, well, you see how passive she is in the later slides. But now we quickly summarize the lens 2 that we chose in the previous 4 slides, that is violence, and how we studied it as a spectrum. There are different patterns of control that we went through in the previous 4 slides. It is physical, and you have answered all of them beautifully. It was physical, it was psychological, it was ecological, where Emecheta is beating it. In Emecheta, Francis beats pregnant Ada. In Morrison, school teacher measures Seth. And Divakaruni, husband's trying to reduce her identity. Then Morrison's clearing. In Rhys, the metaphor of the garden, and so on. So this is basically a synthesis of the previous 4 slides of how these different texts approach violence towards women and land also, of course. Now back again to Buchi Emecheta. After Frances burns her manuscript and beats her, Ada leaves. She seeks independence in a hostile environment. Let us see the passage and then we go quickly to the questions. Okay, now that Ada has almost lost everything, what do you think she has left and why is it significant? Yes, very good. Her skills. And what is her skill exactly at this point? Her thoughts and? Yes, very good. And what did she have? Her own self, her ideas, writing. Yes, Rishika. Ultimately, it comes down to writing. And remember the association of the phallic strength with the act of writing. Here, a woman is reclaiming writing as an act to free herself, to write her story. Exactly. Very good. Now, what kind of resistance is this? And I think we explored it in the lens 2 as well. What kind of resistance is this exactly? Yes, she's reclaiming her voice, and it is a sort of creative resistance. We come to Toni Morrison again. Years after the trauma, Seth remembers the clearing where she once gathered with her community to seek healing and self-love. And like I already said, in Black literature, Black British literature, the idea of community is very important. Yes, cognitive resistance, very good. Now we come to this excerpt. She went to the clearing, it was overgrown now. Okay, so in this excerpt, what do you think Seth finds in the clearing? What is her realization? Very good. Reclaims we're all dead. Okay. Expression of joy. What else? Nostalgia, maybe. Yes, reclaiming her memories is correct. And why does she whisper? Why is she whispering there? Why is it whispering and not yelling and not saying something out loud? Why is it a whisper exactly? Is it a quiet resistance? Because only for a moment she learns to love her body. Once again, she remembers loving her body. Yes. She's talking to herself. Very good. And just for a moment, her body was hers again. Okay, great. Then we go to, again, text C, Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni. A woman decides to leave not her husband, but her silence. And this is very interesting. Yes, very good. And compare the act of writing here. The act of writing in the previous slide was something else. And in this slide, in this excerpt, it is something else. You can pay special attention to the sentence. Some resistances, she learned, are quiet. This is a more ambitious resistance. Yes, writing has become a tool to resist, but also I would argue that it is to preserve her identity, whatever is remaining of her identity. As we have already seen in the previous excerpts, identity is a real problem here. She's losing herself slowly. She's adjusting and she's losing space. Yes, very good. And why is the envelope important, by the way? She folds the letter and she keeps it in an envelope in the text, in the story. So why do you think is that envelope important? She keeps that envelope with herself. She does not show it to anybody. Yes, it is for herself. It is a quiet, it is a private resistance meant only for herself, and it is different from Edda's, which is much more public. Very good. Trauma writing, sure. And then we quickly move on to the fourth text. Again, White Sargasso Sea, Antoinette's final dream. She's in England in the attic. She sees the girl she once was, and then she sees her path. Okay, so the element of fire is now back again. And again, that violent streak is evident in Antoinette. What has she become really? What kind of resistance is this? Is it more passive or is it more violent? Yes, she decided to resist. Yes, boldness. I think all of them are strong, but in different ways. Antoinette here, yes, she's displaying a bit of an active resistance. She's more violent about it. She's using the element of fire, the rage burning within her. And that rage translates into fire outside. And if you have read Jane Eyre, you will remember that she managed to burn the house down. Yes, visible resistance, very good. Yes, very good. She's very clear about it. She's very ambitious and clear about it that I am going to burn the house no matter what. Very good. Okay, then now we assimilate all of these things into understanding how resistance was portrayed as a spectrum across these four texts. And then we see how in Emecheta it is taking flight and writing, using writing as a tool to free yourself. In Morrison, it is memory and community. Like I said, love your flesh, love it hard. And in Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni, it is a quiet endurance, keeping the letter, enclosing your identity in an envelope. And then in Rhys, it is fire and destruction. I am fire, now I know why I was brought here. The active ambition. So each resists with whatever they have, each claims their territory back. Now, we are trying to synthesize what we saw so far so that we have a clearer idea of how to approach texts through feminist post-colonial lenses or post-colonial ecological lenses or post-colonial feminist lenses. So if you see towards the left, we have body as territory, violence, and resistance. And then across the text, you can see how each text has examined, approached, or used that aspect to send a sort of message. Flesh is treated differently across the texts. There is the creative self, the sacred flesh, the property of the family, seeing the body as natural vitalist that is to be tamed. And then we saw different kinds of violences, also physical, economic, physical, historical, psychological, generational, ecological, imperial. Imperial because it is associated with the empire, historical because of the history of slavery, generational because of the generational trauma that has been passed down from mother to daughter and probably will be passed down from the daughter to her children, and economic because we talked about the bride price, the transactional nature of the relationship between Francis and Ada, and all of the women in Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni's arranged marriage. So the act of resistance, how does that act of resistance feature in these texts? And what is the common thread? The control of women's bodies and the control of land. And of course, women's bodies are shown to be controlled in a much more visual way, but there is also that inherent control of land which you will find across all texts. Now, what stays with you? I want you to know that. I want to know what came across as a powerful moment for you during this presentation, during this analysis, and which moment from today will stay with you, stay on with you, and what connections do you see from today's words? Any general thoughts I would like to know from you, and what would you like to add to this conversation in general? Yes. What about reproductive rights debates? Very good. Sure. Access, autonomy, very good. If somebody wants to answer through their camera, then they can show themselves and speak. That is also fine.
Divyanshu, I think you had raised your hand. So if you would like to, you can address and ask or make your observation regarding
Yes, sir. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Actually, I'm also working on a topic related to this for my research project, and I'm also debating about reproductive rights.
Okay.
And I was dealing with the problem that how socially programmed and uh, uh, basic norm it has been for child reproduction and conceiving children, and women's are a subject to it. I'm
Yes.
working on The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. So I want your review about it. That is it very well programmed in women that they are unaware that it is not their individual choice.
Hmm. That is a difficult question, I think. All of us are programmed in some way. And I think the idea behind feminism or any kind of school of thought is trying to get past that sort of conditioning and trying to analyze that conditioning. As a woman, I might be tempted to have kids later, but that doesn't mean that I'm subscribing to the idea of, well, a woman ought to reproduce. It is supposed to be my choice, and I'm supposed to know the association with that comes with my choice. I don't know how else to answer your question, but I think yes, we are all programmed in a certain way, and we are supposed to try to analyze, and then we make our choices. It is completely up to us, I think.
Yes, I really agree with you. And I am fighting with the same problem because the conditioning and the thought of ecofeminism is very clashing for me also. Because I'm unable to isolate them.
How
Because
come?
when we talk about, yeah, yeah, as in Atwood, there is conditioning.
Yes.
Women are subjugated for reproduction
Yes.
entirely, means whole state is fallen to that. And when we talk about basic ecofeminist understanding of what I understand from ecofeminism is how natural instinct and personal individuality is involved in ecofeminism. So I'm very conflicted with it, that how to understand these concepts together.
I think what you are facing is the essentialist criticism of ecofeminism, that it is very essentialist, and then it ascribes a certain domain to men, a certain domain to women, certain duties to men, certain duties to women. But of course, ecofeminism has evolved beyond that. Now they are mainly trying to, and they're doing exactly what feminism did at some point. They're trying to use their strengths to sort of make a change, to change the status of women and to change the status of land and nature in general. So I wouldn't say that they are, of course, they're essentialist in their interpretation, but the things that they are using ecofeminism for are absolutely not essentialist, and they are very relevant, and they will be powerful tools to us in future. And it is slowly evolving, just like feminism had gaps. Ecofeminism is also full of gaps, but of course that will move on. I think you can, if I'm not wrong, you can read Beena Agarwal, am I right? Who criticized Vandana Shiva's essentialism. So I think you can read that. And since you're working with The Handmaid's Tale, you could also read Swastik Night.
Yes, yes, I really loved your input, but I was tackling. I'm new to the discourse of feminism, and I used to talk about dystopia and other things. But I was also looking into Nan Tara Sagal's work, and it is like Indian versions of Handmaid's Tale, and I'm really confused with my discourse. But I will figure it out. Your input was very really helpful.
I haven't read her, but I would love to read, and I would love to talk about this further with you. I will share my email towards the end, and we can have a discussion on this maybe. For now, I think we can go on to the next person, Rishika. Yes. Rishika, you may unmute yourself.
Rishika,
ma'am.
you have raised your hand. That is why we are wondering whether you have any queries or questions or observations.
Yeah, she was going to speak, I think.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. And I just want to share my opinion that in India, in fact, in present time, women do not have myself here. Myself for women is totally divided self. it is totally controlled by family or society. I just want to say something. Thank you.
Actually, Rishika, the observation that you have made today shows us that you are evolving to myself, and you are trying to examine a sense of self. You are trying to develop a sense of self. So that realization in itself is a step in the evolution towards yourself, I think. Any other comments? Of course, the topic of immigration policies now, it's a hot topic. And then we had a recent web series which talks about post-marital rape and seeing the woman as the husband's property, woman's body as a husband's property. I don't know if you have watched it. It's a new web series called Chitra. Yes. Rishika has raised her hand. Rishika, you may unmute yourself. Sure, Rishika.
Currently,
Please
I'm
go ahead.
also yes, and currently I'm also seeing it is not with myself, but I'm seeing this is present and this is happening with many girls and many women.
I agree.
And
Yes.
just throughout literature, I just want to focus what happened to women. I'm also focusing what is happening right now with women nowadays. And I just think
I
this is
think
not
we can
totally
begin to
complete.
examine, yes. I think we
This
can
is not
begin to
totally.
examine the society in general. When we isolate
Yes.
the idea of women and when we isolate the idea of feminism, we run the risk of making everybody else the enemy. And that is why feminism suffered a lot in the initial years. But what we are trying to do here, being an ecofeminist, being a feminist in general, is that we are trying to understand the structures operating in the society and see how they benefit or how they keep some people at a disadvantage.
Yes, ma'am. And here I'm just totally so supporting the ideas of Alicia for womanhood. That she's totally she want to totally say that only women can save women. There should be a strong unity of among women that however that there was unity in workers and they fight together. But in women they are divided in class, higher class, lower class, and families, in caste. That's why there's not a specific and not a strong unity among women. And
So I think, Rishika, we lost the connection, but that is
if
your
women
homework for
become
today. So that is your homework for today, Rishika. You need to examine why women operate in units rather than as a whole unified whole. Okay, and we must understand
ma'am,
the
why not?
dynamics behind it. We must understand why women are made to pit against each other. And why does that happen? We cannot blame them alone. I think that is a society, the structure of the society that operates in a certain way, that we are forced to compete against each other, that we are pitted against each other, and we operate in units or as single cells and not as unified wholes. And of course, unity
Yes,
is
ma'am.
never always the answer. If we go with white feminism, then it failed miserably because it saw everybody as a united whole. Every woman must be encompassed within that small umbrella. But that is not possible. We have to go beyond. That is why today we study Black feminism, we study African feminism, we study Asian feminism, Southeast Asian feminism. So we need not go for unity first. We need to represent everybody, I think.
Yes, ma'am. Right, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Right. Anybody? No problem. Anybody else? Yes, of course. Double subjugation, triple subjugation. Yes, I think Professor Aloysius will take care of the certificates for sure. Okay, so I want to thank everybody. And of course, we dealt with the idea that each woman's body is seen as a territory, and then each territory tells a different story. Each story, however, is connected. If you have any other questions, you may direct them to my mail, but if we can deal with them right now also, that's fine.
So,
may I say something?
Yes, sure.
Thank you, Dr. Sundriyal. Thank you, Dr. Sundriyal, for making this session so interactive and interesting.
Thank you
It
so
was
much,
a very
ma'am.
provoking analysis, and I really appreciate the effort Dr. Aloysius has put in to make this workshop a success. Your dedication and meticulous organization allowed the participants to fully engage with the lectures without any technical disruptions. And thank you, dear students, for your active participation and your animated responses. Thank you.
And thank you very much, ma'am, for all the support towards making such a program possible. And many thanks to Dr. Ankita for delivering such an effective session during this
Thank you.
workshop. Because since you were interacting with the participants throughout the workshop, I am very sure that certain ideas have got imprinted upon their minds. And they have actually taken something out of the workshop because of the interactive mode that you used. So now I would like to invite Ankur to deliver the official vote of thanks. Ankur?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ankur, a research scholar enrolled at the University of Allahabad. It is my singular honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks on behalf of Department of English and Modern European Languages, University of Allahabad. As we conclude this online international workshop on contemporary horizons of comparative literature. Over the course of 5 enriching sessions, we have had the privilege of engaging with distinguished speakers from across the globe, each bringing a unique and invaluable perspective to the field of comparative literature. Now, first and foremost, I extend our deepest gratitude to our distinguished speaker, Dr. Ankita Sundriyal, Department of English, Vellore Institute of Technology, Tamil Nadu, for such a profoundly interactive and engaging session. Her lecture on bodies, borders, belonging, postcolonial ecofeminism in comparative literature was illuminating and intellectually rigorous. She discussed the intersections of post-colonial theory, ecofeminism, and comparative literary studies with remarkable clarity. Ma'am, I am sure that this particular two-way and highly interactive session, where the participants actively participated, offered us new perspectives and left us with much to reflect upon and explore further. Moreover, the multiculturality of the selected texts was very apt and precise to bring home the points. Secondly, we offer our respectful thanks to our esteemed patron, Professor Sangeeta Srivastav, Honorable Vice Chancellor, University of Allahabad. We also express our sincere thanks and gratitude to the chairperson and the head of the department, Professor Indrani Mukherjee, for her presence and unwavering support throughout the workshop. Thirdly, a word of thanks is due to our coordinator, Dr. Aloysius Sebastian, whose meticulous planning and tireless efforts have ensured the smooth conduct of this workshop across all the 5 sessions. His dedication behind the scenes have been the quiet but indispensable force driving this event forward. Fourthly, we warmly thank all the participants who joined us throughout this workshop. Your enthusiastic engagement and thoughtful questions have greatly enriched our session. And lastly, we hope that the discussions across these sessions has sparked new ideas and opened fresh avenues of scholarly research and inquiry. Thank you all. Thank you, ma'am.
So thank you, Ankur. Thank you very much, everyone. And before we conclude the workshop, I express my heartfelt thanks to the research scholars who have helped me very dedicatedly towards the success of this workshop. And I particularly thank Ankur and Nilay for all the arrangements that they have done so that we could include a larger number of participants, and also for conducting it so seamlessly without any technical issues. So thank you very much, all of you, and special thanks to Dr. Ankita. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you to the head of the department, Professor Indrani Mukherjee, and thank you to all the participants. So we are concluding the session here, and we'll meet probably again some other time. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Aloysius. It was a pleasure.